Welcome, Lotuses, to episode number 2. I'm your host, Maddie, and we will be discussing the second part of harnessing your second wind. As every episode, we read a letter. We'll stick with last week's letter because there's something else I really want to share. I want people to really learn to paint the picture of what they are going through. Sometimes we don't sit and really think about everything that we are facing or have faced. And I get it. Nobody wants to sit and reflect on negative all the time. But here's the therapeutic side of that. I want you to sit in it and take the time to feel the emotions associated with it. What does that have to do with harnessing your second wind, Maddie? We go through life robotic sometimes because so many things that are already transpiring in our life become second nature to us, no matter how devastating it is. We've pretty much become numb to a lot of the things that we are encountering day to day that impacts us and are traumatic to us. I want you to learn to process your emotions. Learn to realize first and foremost that they're there, that they're real, whether you're displaying them or not. Some of us have learned to turn them off and to put on mask. But in harnessing this second wind, you don't need to bring that into that. Because remember, the harnessing of the second wind speaks to renewed energy, renewed strength. And with that renewed energy and with that renewed strength, there's some weights that are going to have to come off. Because now you're trying to control this second wind of possibilities and this second wind of triumphs that's going to come. You don't want to bring that old stuff into that. So learn to sit and process the things that you're going through. Some of us really need to see a therapist. I'm not going to make this show about that, but we need to have an outlet. It's for some of us that wear a lot of hats and have a lot of responsibilities. Some of us don't get a chance to sit and process. So then they're saying we're walking around bitter or we're sad or we're mad at the world. No, I have a lot of emotions that I'm not in touch with. Be kind to yourself. Sit and process your emotion. And that's going to come with tonight's first strategy, actually. Reflect and adjust. We don't have enough time of reflection. Because a lot of times what's happening in our lives, it starts with us. We're not always showing up as the solution. Sometimes we are the actual problem. So we need to reflect on ourselves, reflect on our actions, reflect on our interactions, and take time to measure it. And where it's not adding up and we're falling short, we have to readjust. Readjustment is not always easy because it's not comfortable. Sit in that. Discomfort becomes comfortable sometimes. So because that discomfort has now become comfortable, it's harder and more challenging to readjust. Reflect. I ain't telling y'all to break up with your significant others. I ain't telling y'all to walk off your jobs. Let's make that clear. But reflect on what's happening in your life. Reflect on what you're producing. Reflect on those goals that you aren't meeting. They may need to be adjusted. Remember, that was one of the 4 strategies from episode number 1. We talked about our health. We talked about positive mindset. We talked about breaking tasks up into smaller compartments. And we talked about setting clear goals. So now that we're there, What do we need to reflect and adjust? Maybe that goal was clear last year, but life happened, and now that goal may need to be readjusted. Does it mean that you give up? No. Does it mean that you quit and don't move forward because the goal needs to be readjusted? No. Reflect on the goal and readjust it as need be. I know I made it sound plain and simple. I get it. It's not. I was 320 pounds September 1st of last year. That's not even a year ago. It wasn't easy for me to not go and get that cheeseburger. It wasn't easy for me to stop emotional eating. It wasn't easy for me to drag 320 pounds on a treadmill 5 days a week, nonstop. Many of you saw me in a capacity where I could barely even walk, and I had got to using a cane. There were days I took that cane. I'm not telling you to try this at home. I'm not responsible. Took the cane with me, and I just did a slow walk. But that was my breaking it up into smaller tasks because I was determined to not be defeated. Reflect and adjust. Take breaks. Many of us are workaholics. Breaks are necessary. Let me tell you, this new generation out here, they breaking. They are breaking for extended periods of time, and they don't feel any kind of way about it. But then there's our generation where we were taught to work. We were doing physical work. That's what we were taught. Take your breaks. Your body requires it. It's necessary. That's why we're supposed to sleep each day, because our bodies need breaks. Take time, even if you don't go on vacation. I'm not saying you have to go somewhere 5 days, 7 days. I'm not saying that. You can take a break. You can take a mental health day. Even if you start with half a day, take a break. If you take time, even when you get off at 5:30, you come home. Sometimes I just sit in my car before I come in the house because I want to take time to decompress. Take a break. You deserved it. Many of you have earned it. And those of you that can go on vacation, ask yourself, when was the last time you went on one? When was the last time that you took a break and spent time with your family? When was the last time that you really took the time to sit down and look at your significant other eye to eye? When was the last time you took the time to compliment the other person in your life on what they had on during that day? What does that have to do with taking a break? Sometimes you have to unplug your mind from this world and look at what's right in front of your face. Learn to take a break. Those tasks will still be there. I promise you that. Stay connected. I told you I took 30 days, probably a little longer, to detox from people. So I'm not saying that there isn't a period of time for detoxifying yourself or your life from others. I'm not saying that. Stay connected. What does staying connected mean? I wanted you to take time to really hear what I was saying. So that was an intentional pause. Stay connected to those who pour into you. Stay connected to those who speak positive in your life. Stay connected in networking circles that will help sharpen you and expand you and challenge you. Stay connected to people of where you want to go, right? Because there's a group that will stay connected to you. You see how this works? As you're connecting up, Somebody else is connecting to you. But because there's someone connected to you, you have to make sure that you're staying connected to others because you don't want your pour to drain you. Then you won't have enough strength to harness your second wind. Because harnessing that second wind, anything that you try to control requires energy. Energy in your physical and energy from your mind. Energy is leaving your body because you're doing work, right? So in order to conserve or replenish that energy, you have to be connected into sources. No man is an island. Many of you, let's go there. Many of you have people that are depending on you. Many of you, all it seems like people know is your name and your number. Let's be real. We all have those in our life. Those people that require us, they depend on us. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you find balance. Let's put that disclaimer there. But if they're constantly connecting into you and requiring things, where do you get your recharge? What are you tapping into? Analyze that. Are you tapped into a source that's equal? You tapped into a source that's more? Some days will require differently. Where will you be able to pull from? Do you have anybody that you can pull from at all? And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be in the form of a physical person. It could be books. It can be podcasts. It can be YouTube channels. It could be going outside, getting grounded with your feet on the ground. It can mean you're going to sit at the park by yourself. What are you connected to? Take time to reflect on that. Lastly, find inspiration. Some of us aren't moved by anything, and that's just real. But there has to be something to your core that's pulling you somewhere. Taking that break will help you tap into that. Reflecting will help you tap into that. You could say, well, Maddie, I don't know what inspires me. I don't know what brings me inspiration. I don't know what gets my thoughts to moving. I don't know what makes me innovative. I don't know what makes me creative. Take time to reflect. See what moves you, what pulls you, and then measure it. Weigh it. Why am I pulled to that? Is that a good pull? Where is that pull coming from? Is something at the root of that? It's going to take much work. Some of us have endured levels upon levels upon levels of unhealed trauma. Trauma that you've never identified. Some trauma you have identified. Some trauma you've swept under the rug. Some trauma you've just identified as being family history. Some trauma you've identified as being cultural. Some of the trauma was because your mama did this or your daddy did this. Reflect. 8 strategies, guys, between last episode and this episode. I want to leave you with this nugget. There's a book called 212, The Next Degree. In that book, it explains at 211 degrees, water is hot. At 212 degrees, water boils. It's only 1 degree, but that 1 degree changes a thing. At 211 degrees in hot water, you can cook certain things. But at 212 degrees of boiling water, enough boiling water can power a locomotive. There's one thing keeping you from being greater. That 1 degree, that extra amount of effort that is now determining success and failure, that's now dictating good versus great. That little bit of effort to get started. We've talked about changing your health. We've talked about positive mindset. We've discussed breaking things up into smaller tasks. We've discussed setting clear goals. Another objective on the list from tonight was reflect and adjust. Then we moved on to taking breaks, staying connected, and last but certainly not least, finding inspiration. All of these strategies are important because people are watching you. That number 8 goal or that number 8 strategy of finding inspiration, you are somebody's inspiration. Somebody's waiting on you to pop. Somebody's waiting on you to manifest. Somebody's waiting on you to be healed. Somebody's waiting on you to be free of trauma. Somebody's waiting on you to get your finances right. Somebody's waiting on you to get your house in order. Somebody's waiting on you to open the business. Somebody is waiting on you to show up. Somebody's waiting on your voice. Somebody is waiting on you. Be healed. Harness your second wind and yield what you're supposed to yield. Purpose what you're supposed to purpose. Be who you're supposed to be. Lotuses, this is episode number 2. I hope you tune in to next week as we are discussing episode number 3, the alpha female. See you next week.